Good evening, high school football fans. This is High School Football America for June the 6th. I'm Jeff Fisher, host of the show and founder and editor-in-chief of High School Football America and highschoolfootballamerica.com. Don't forget, you can also get us at highschoolfootball.com. Tonight's show brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. They appreciate you for tuning in each and every Thursday, letting us share these great high school football stories with you. And they want to remind you that, like football, Frosted Flakes is another passion that you can share with your kids. Dads, whenever you're sharing the passion, whether it's for football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, you name the sport, make sure when you're sharing that passion, you do it with the kids over a bowl of Frosted Flakes. Show also brought to you tonight by NCSA Athletic Recruiting, by Webleats.com, and by the Maxwell Football Club. Well, folks, we're less than 2 months away from the start of fall camps around the country. Of course, everybody will be opening up at different times, and this weekend we'll put out a list of when all of the states open their camps. But it's at that time, a lot of 7-on-7s going on. The qualifiers taking place right now. They started today for the National Select 7-on-7, which takes place down in Alabama. There's a lot of these going on around the country. Got a lot of kids making their verbal commitments. The best way to keep up with what's going on throughout the week is by signing up for our social media way of doing things, the social media family at High School Football America. All you have to do is go to highschoolfootballamerica.com or highschoolfootball.com. Top right-hand side of the website there, you'll see all the icons for Facebook and Twitter. So all you have to do is sign up there, and we keep you updated 365 days a year. As we've always said, this show never ever goes away on the Artist First Radio Network. We are year-round, the only high school football radio show in America that goes 12 months a year, because we know you enjoy this sport and you want to hear as much about it as you can. Now, coming up on the show tonight, we are going to get a real nice peek inside what 2013 holds as far as it relates to the mythical national championship. Steve Spiewak, a good friend of the show here from MaxPreps, well, he puts in a lot of work and digs down deep and comes up with his what he calls the Early Contenders Top 25 poll. And Steve will be here to talk about that. Lots of fine teams that you expect in there, and then there's a couple that you may not have heard of up until this point. So Steve Spiewak coming up on the show here in about 2 minutes or so. Also on the show, we're going to introduce you to a new blogger at High School Football America. He will start writing in the coming weeks, but we thought we'd introduce you to him tonight. His name is Bill Godsil. He is the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School in South Dakota. Yep, that's right, South Dakota. And we don't do a whole lot there, and as we said over the last couple of weeks, the reason we're bringing in these coaches with a lot of diversity, like Brian Weichel and Jason Strunk, is to give everyone an inside look at football at different levels. And it's not just about the top 25 that Steve Spiewak's going to be talking about. As a matter of fact, that's the smallest slice of high school football. We want to give you the biggest slice, and people like Bill Godsil, who's taking over a program that at one point had the longest losing streak in the country, came up a little short of the, being infamous for too many losses in a row. But they had 79 straight losses at one point. They're coming off of a 1-win season. They were 3 losses short of that record for most consecutive losses by a high school football team in America. But Bill Godsil has a lot of energy, and he believes that he's going to be able to turn things around. And again, interesting to look at football outside of the majors. And that's what Bill's going to do, taking us inside South Dakota. Well, let's take our first break. When we come back, time to take a look at who may have a shot at winning a mythical national championship. You may remember last year in our first top 25, it was a tie between John Curtis and Allen out of Texas. John Curtis from Louisiana. They were co-national champs for us. A lot of people called John Curtis the top team in the country. Most of the media out there, including MaxPreps. And when we come back, Steve Spiewak is going to let us know, can Curtis come back and try and defend its mythical national championship? Is Allen in the hunt? And who are the other 25 teams that he feels right now have a real shot at making some noise on the national stage? You're listening to High School Football America, brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love, and this is the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
This portion of High School Football America brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. Well, time to welcome into the show a good friend of the show, a guy that hardest working man in show business / high school football. We're going to call him Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps, and he's done it the last couple of years here on the show, and he's back to do it again. The calendar turns to June 1st, and all of a sudden, Steve's got his Early Contenders Top 25 poll out for MaxPreps. He's done all his homework. He's got all the notes there. You can argue with him all you want, but he's the guy that puts his neck on the line here early in the season, and Steve's here to talk about who he thinks is the preseason number one, and we'll take you all the way down through 25. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate the kind words, but there's probably about 15,000 actual football coaches that give me a run for my money for hardest working.
I know. Well, you can just send me the check. I'll put you at the top
there
here.
You go.
I'll be your publicist here. But always fun to take a look at this. I'm always excited to see it, and we know you're going to have the big three states in there, the Texases, the Californias, the Floridas, but it's always anxious to go from 25 on up. And for those that haven't seen it yet, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to kind of do a reveal on the show, and let's first start with what you do every year, which is how you come about creating your Early Contenders Top 25 poll.
Sure. So it really starts at the end of the previous season. We kind of take stock of which teams were really successful, which teams won state titles or played for state titles or had deep playoff runs. And then we kind of just take stock and look at what those teams have coming back. Are there teams that are dominated by underclassmen? And, kind of the chief, factors and ingredients we look for are, how good was the team last year and what does that team have coming back? Because teams can be very good one year and, can lose some key players and take a step back. Or, you could have a team that achieved a high level of success as a largely underclass team, and then that team could be even better the following year. So those are kind of the two main things we look at. And, teams that were very successful last year and were very dominated by underclassmen, teams that scored high in both of those categories are teams that find themselves at or near the top of the poll. So after we kind of just take a look broadly at the end of the season, we send out a survey to about 1,000 high school coaches to kind of get not only their opinion on their own teams, but kind of the general landscape of their area and kind of get their insight on who they think the top teams are. And then while we're doing that, we reach out to as many local writers, local media members as possible to get their opinion because they know a heck of a lot more than I do for all these kind of local areas. And, from there we go from the ground up, try to identify top teams in areas of states, and then from there top teams in each state. And once we have kind of the top teams from each state, we try to piece them together nationally and put together our top 25.
See, folks, I told you, he's the hardest working guy in show business. Look at that. Look at all he did there. We're talking with Steve Spiewak tonight. MaxPreps, we're going to now start talking about the Early Contenders Top 25, now that we know how the sausage is made, so to speak. And a team that breaks in right at the bottom there is a team that's no stranger to the national rankings. You love their facility, and they've got another tough national schedule. Bishop Gorman. Tell me about them.
Yeah, so Bishop Gorman has really emerged nationally as one of the top programs. They're a team that I think is still going to continue to get better. The Las Vegas area is kind of booming right now. There's a lot of people moving there, and this is the kind of top dog. If you're looking for elite high school football programs, there's really nobody close to Bishop Gorman right now in that area. So they, as you mentioned, they have incredible facilities. They have a coach that has done a tremendous job. And so they're getting players. They're getting guys left and right. This is a team that is really attracting top talent and producing Division I talent. So on paper, they have some losses from last year. Their running back, Nathan Starks, who will be a senior, is no longer with the team. And then they had another key defensive lineman transfer out. So, on paper there are some losses there, but I'm really banking on the success and the foundation of this program and head coach Tony Sanchez in finding young guys to step in and fill those roles. And they have a quarterback, Randall Cunningham Jr., a 6'5" athlete. He wasn't even the starter last year, but he's going to be probably one of the top quarterbacks in the country this year. So I expect them to have a very good season. They once again have a very rigorous schedule. I don't know what their record will be, but if they can find a way to go undefeated and they can find a way to fill those holes, they're going to be in the mix for a number one finish.
Yeah, Randall Cunningham. That kind of sounds familiar. I think he might know somebody that is a pretty good
pedigree there.
Really, and we're not going to be able to go every team here. So 24 is University out of Florida, of course, found its way into MaxPreps National poll last year. Southern California guy, I got to talk about the number 23 Jackrabbits. A surprise at quarterback. They don't have their quarterback coming back that they expected, but the Jackrabbits are one of 6 California teams, so we're happy about that out here.
Yeah, in talking to Coach Lauer, I really get the sense that they're pretty comfortable with the guy that they'll have behind center. Tiedemann is his name. He saw some action last year and performed admirably during that time. So they did lose Eban Jackson, who transferred to Narbonne, but I expect that they'll be fine behind center at quarterback. And with the skill kids they have back, John Smith and Iman Marshall are just truly, truly elite skill guys who will probably play on both sides of the ball for Poly, coupled with a very good defensive line. I think that this is going to be a very, very good team once again, and it's just amazing that they're not the top team in Southern California. They'd be the top team in probably 10 or 15 states, but this is kind of speaking to the depth of Southern California this year.
Oh, trust me, I'm going to have a question for you at the end about those guys that didn't make it, just because I'm going to get asked that out here by everybody anyway, so we'll have a little fun with that. But
sure.
And one thing we should point out, with Poly, they obviously made a run to the bowl championship game last year, which was a surprise. So they got a lot of talent back from that. Now, here's a community that I really love at 22, South Carolina, Rock Hill, Northwestern High School. That is becoming a real area when it comes to guys that not only do it during high school but go on to the college ranks. Tell me a little bit about Northwestern this year.
Sure. So Rock Hill, the city of Rock Hill, is obviously the home of Jadeveon Clowney, who's probably the number one NFL draft prospect. It also produced Justin Worley, Tennessee quarterback. So Rock Hill in the last 5 or 6 years has really become, to your point, a little football hotbed. And Northwestern has probably been the top program in that area during that stretch. And I really, really love this team's offense. Kyle Richardson was the longtime offensive coordinator, and then he became the head coach last year. And I think that they're really going to continue to take another step forward with him a little bit more comfortable in his role as head coach. And they have the quarterback there to do it in Mason Rudolph. Kind of looks like a Justin Worley clone, big, tall, slender, and he knows the system. This is going to be his 3rd year starting at quarterback, and in Worley's 3rd season, he could, conduct that offense in his sleep, basically, and Northwestern had a phenomenal year, and so I'm kind of thinking that with Mason Rudolph back at the helm, with some of his receivers back, I think that their offense is going to be really, really difficult to stop it, and I expect them to probably win a state title this year. Talking
with Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps, the Early Contenders Top 25. You can follow Steve on Twitter at Spiewak, Spiewak. Jersey boy, tried and true, out in the Midwest now, but you can't take can't take Jersey out of the guy no matter where he moves to. Number 21, Paramus Catholic, and they got that meat grinder in the league up there with the Don Boscos and the Bergen Catholics. Tell us why you think Paramus Catholic is the cream of the crop this year.
Well, they won the non-public Group 4 state title last year, and they returned most of their team. So they beat Bergen Catholic. They beat St. Joe's Regional. They actually lost to Don Bosco Prep pretty handily during the regular season. But, they proved it last year by winning that playoff bracket that they're for real. And the expectation is with Jabril Peppers as a senior and their quarterback returning and a big offensive line back, that they should be even better in 2013. So that's kind of the reason that they're ranked high, is that they won it last year. They should be better this fall, but they will need to get over that hump of beating Don Bosco Prep. I mentioned that they had some other big in-state victories, but that loss to Don Bosco Prep, I know, still stings Coach Partridge, even though they won the state title. So I know that'll be a really interesting game to watch this year. But on paper, at least, Paramus Catholic is definitely the favorite in New Jersey. And if I had to pick a number 2 team, it'd probably be St. Joe's Regional, a team that they beat last year.
I agree with you on that. And you're making all kinds of sense here. People, don't pick on this guy. He's got this stuff down pat. Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps. Number 20, DeMatha out of Maryland. 19, Folsom out of Northern California. Let's move up to 18, Bellevue out of Washington, a team that made some noise last year, making a run at your national championship. Haven't lost in 40 games. Tell us a little bit about what they have coming back and why they're at 18.
So Bellevue does lose a lot of players from last year's team. Last year's team, it was kind of a magical season in how it came together. They had the big win over Trinity early in the year, and they just kind of romped through the rest of their schedule. They have Bashard Buddha Baker back. He's probably one of the best athletes they've had in program history. I really like the underclassmen that Bellevue has on both sides of the line. You talk to some of the guys up there on the staff, and they think that there probably could be 5 or 6 BCS guys already among the sophomores and in the junior class. So I think that this team will lack the senior leadership that it had last year that really allowed it to contend for a number 1 spot. But I expect this to once again be the best team in Washington. I expect their offensive system to be flawless, and I expect them to not lose a game.
Butch Goncharoff does a great job, a great program there. We're talking with Steve Spiewak, MaxPreps.com, the Early Contenders poll. You can check it out. It's posted up there for you. Finally get to, we'll talk a couple of Florida teams here. We kind of skipped over University, but 16 and 17, a couple of Sunshine State teams. One very familiar, St. Thomas Aquinas, and then Apopka at number 17.
Yeah, so you're looking at the Class 8A and Class 7A defending state champions, respectively, in Apopka and St. Thomas Aquinas. Apopka returns Zach Darlington, who's the coach's son, BCS caliber quarterback. They have a defensive line that's loaded, and they have an offensive line that features Martez Ivy, who's one of the best juniors in the country. So, again, you kind of look for recipes for success, and when you have a quarterback who won a state title last year in any classification, let alone Florida 8A, when you have a guy that's that experienced, that has proven he can perform under pressure, and then you bring him back with 2 very good lines, I expect them to be even better this year. St. Thomas Aquinas, it's interesting. They had some regular season losses the last few years, and it looked like the program was taking a step back, but then by the end of last year, come playoff time, there was a case to be made for them being probably the best team in the state of Florida. And so, what we'll have to see this year is, are they going to take another step forward back to that truly elite national tier where they're a top 3, top 5 team in the country year in and year out? They have a game against John Curtis, which won't be easy. They open up with Miami Northwestern in a game that I think is going to be a lot more interesting than people are expecting at this point. But, they have some holes to fill. They lost Joey Bosa, who's at Ohio State. They graduated John Korn, quarterback, who's now at Houston. But if Aquinas is going to reascend to that perch that they were at probably 3 or 4 years ago, then they'll have to just find guys who could step in and get the job done, which is something that they've done in the past, and we'll see if they'll be able to do it this year.
They've done it very easily in the past. Talking with Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps. Early Contenders top 25, and then at 12, 13, and 15, we get our first Texas teams bunched up there. Katy at 12, Coppell at 13, and DeSoto at 15. Shake them out a little bit for us. I like Coppell, by the way. Only lost last year during the regular season to Allen. I like them a lot.
Yeah, so Katy probably is the top team on in the Houston area, and that's no surprise. There was a lot of talk that Lamar, which played for a state title, should be up there. I like Katy. That's a team. Talk about a program that reloads. That they should have guys that are just completely capable of stepping in. They have a quarterback back. They have their running back back, and they have guys who will step in on the line. So I think they're going to be very good once more. And Capel defeated Allen last year in the regular season, which was the only loss that Allen had, and Allen was a steamroller by the end of the year. So they returned a good mix of guys on both sides of the ball. That's what I really like. They had some key guys back on defense, on the defensive line. Solomon Thomas is an elite player. They have a number of guys back on the offensive line, and they have some skill kids back on offense. Their big issue right now is they need to find a quarterback. And if they did have a returning quarterback and a guy that was experienced, they could probably be even higher in the rankings. So I expect it to be a good year for Koppel and a very, very good year if they get some consistency from behind center.
And we move up top 10 now. Well, we'll say 11 and 10. A couple of Southern California teams, too, that I'm looking forward to watching in person this year. Corona Centennial, year in and year out. Matt Logan gets it done. Sarah out of Gardena, pretty solid, too. You got them right back-to-back at 10 and 11.
I think Centennial is probably the premier program in Southern California over the last 4 or 5 seasons. I think Matt Logan has done a terrific job. I think Sarah, may get a little slighted because they're, a smaller team. But when you line up, number of blue chip kids, number of D1 kids, they go toe to toe with anybody in the country. So, there's a case to be made for Sarah, at number 11 being underrated. You could make the case for them being a top 5 team, certainly. I think the loss of their running back, Malik Roberson, hurts. He tore his ACL 2 weeks ago. I talked to Coach Altenberg, and he was really bummed because he was counting on a big season from Roberson. Again, a program like Sarah, I don't think it will necessarily be difficult for them to find a running back, with speed that can kind of slide in there. But Roberson was really a gifted player, and he's going to be difficult to replace. But everything else is there. Their line play should be stellar. Jalen Green is back at quarterback, and Adoree Jackson is, one of the premier players in the country, and he'll line up on both sides of the ball. So I'm really interested to see how Sarah navigates its regular season schedule, because this could be a team that we're looking at competing in an open division bowl game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Division II champs last year. Steve Spiewak throwing down the knowledge on his early contenders top 25 tonight on High School Football America. Number 9, Washington out of Florida. Now here. So we get Curtis. Curtis, your defending national champ, comes in at 8, and then there's this team Edna Carr at number 7 out of Louisiana. Now there's a team you haven't seen in the rankings in a while. So tell me about both teams and if Curtis is able to maybe have a shot at a back-to-back.
Yeah, no, John Curtis is obviously very good again this year. We just liked Edna Carr a little more in talking to the folks down in Louisiana. They were Class 4A state champions. They were undefeated last year, so they're somewhat of a newcomer to the national scene, but statewide, this has been a very, very good program in Louisiana recently. And they have some guys on both sides of the ball. They're truly game changers. Devontae Speedy Noyle is their main guy on offense. He's a blue chip kid, and he is so exciting to watch with the ball in his hands. And at the next level, he's probably looking at receiver, maybe defensive back. But on the high school level, you put him behind center at quarterback and get him the ball in his hands, and he has a chance to break one any play that he's involved in. So they went through a coaching change in the off season, but the new coach Nathaniel Jones is saying the right things, and it seems like he's a Edna Carr graduate. So I think it's a good fit. But they have a brutal schedule. They will see Curtis early on, so they're ranked closely right now, but we'll know before too long who really is the top team in the state of Louisiana, because Curtis and Edna Carr will play.
Got a lot of that going on this year. I like those interstate games. We had you on the last time talking about the big ones. Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps on the show tonight. Number 6, St. John Bosco from out here in Southern California. Josh Rosen, a junior to be quarterback who had a heck of a sophomore year, but there's more talent than just a quarterback.
Yeah, this is a very complete football team. You have a blue chip kid at quarterback. You have a big experienced offensive line. You have numerous talented players on defense, and you have young talent that's emerging and could be due for for breakout years this fall. So there's really not a lot to dislike about St. John Bosco. I'm very, very excited to see them this year. But for as good as they look on paper, and for, we have them ranked very high. Just like I mentioned earlier, Southern California is so deep this year that they're no lock to make a bowl game. And this is kind of a similar position that Santa Margarita was in last year. You remember Johnny Stanton and all the kids that they had back, and the injury to Stanton really derailed that team's kind of momentum. And so we'll have to see it. If Bosco can stay healthy, if they have no letdown games. They obviously have a very challenging schedule, Trinity League opponents, and they're playing Clovis North and Chandler from Arizona. So again, on paper, this looks like a team that should be in the thick of things come December, but as we saw last year in Southern California, you never know how the chips are going to fall.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I did have a chance to talk with Johnny Stanton last week. Knee is 100%, and he's on his way to Nebraska, so that's good to hear. Now, I'm going to kind of skip over the number 4, Allen, for a second here, because Georgia fans are screaming and yelling and cheering and all that other good stuff. Norcross at 3 and Sandy Creek at 5.
Yeah, Sandy Creek, a little bit of a smaller school, but they have been remarkably dominant in their classification. They've won 3 state titles in the last 4 seasons, and they bring back a team that, in talking to Coach Walker, could be their most talented. And this is a school that had Calvin Johnson running up and down the sidelines. So to say that this is possibly their most talented team really speaks to the expectations for Sandy Creek in 2013. They have their starting quarterback back. They have Damari Kitt, a Clemson-bound receiver. They have 2 Division I running backs who will be juniors, and they have some big boys on the line, and they have very good defensive backs. So, again, this is another complete team, another experienced team, and when you get into the top 5, top 6, like I mentioned earlier, you start seeing teams that have that combination of accomplishment in 2012 with a lot of kids back from that season. And so you see that especially with Sandy Creek, because most of their team is back on both sides of the ball. With Norcross, they returned 16 starters. They have Lorenzo Carter on the defensive line. They have Miles Autry, who's going to be kind of dual, probably hybrid, see a little bit of action at running back, receiver. He may even see time at quarterback. But had he been healthy, I think they had a real case for a preseason number 1 ranking nationally. However, he tore his ACL and MCL last December, and he's still not recovered from that surgery. They're going to need him this fall, and I wasn't comfortable ranking them any higher with him kind of being a question mark and needing to replace their quarterback. So that's a team that it has a great potential. They won the Class 6A state title last year, finished undefeated, and have a bulk of the team back. But we'll just see how injuries kind of heal up for them.
Talking with Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps. Hey, Steve, you need a glass of water. We only have 3 more teams to go. I'm sorry to put You good? You hanging in there?
Good.
You're good. All right. Well, let's go to number 4. I remember talking to Tom Westerberg at the end of last season when Allen made its run and wins the Division I Class 5A championship. And I joked with him. I said, there's a bullseye coming, and you put the bullseye at number 4. Tell me about Allen and the Eagles.
Yeah, I think Allen is pretty clearly the number 1 team in the state of Texas to start the season. A lot of that has to do with their quarterback, Kyler Murray, who emerged and was really, in my opinion, the spark plug to that team last year. I thought he did a great job down the stretch. He made numerous big plays for them and was really just a reliable, athletic option at quarterback. They have receiver back. They have 3 or 4 key guys on defense back. But this is, really kind of the, preeminent Texas powerhouse team that is a huge, huge program that has been grooming kids for 3 years. So we should see them fill the holes that they left due to graduation. I'm not completely sold that this team is going to, finish undefeated and run the table. I think there are a lot of really, really good Texas teams. I think Allen is one of them, and I like them number 1 to start the season. But by no means do I think that they're just going to have a cakewalk through the schedule. I'm happy where they're ranked now, but their schedule with South Lake Cal, with some of the other teams they're going to see, we're going to find out quickly if they belong again this year.
Yeah, that's for sure. And at number 2, maybe a team that kind of fits that mold that stumbled at the start because of a tough schedule, Miami Central out of Florida, number 2. But boy, did they come on like gangbusters, and you like them this year.
Yeah, I am so impressed with Miami Central, team that has 16 starters back after winning a Florida 6A title. The offensive firepower among skill players on this team is almost unprecedented. Their starting running backs are committed to Florida and Miami respectively in Dalvin Cook and Joseph Yerby. Keith Reed, the quarterback, is back. Their offensive line is almost wholly intact from a year ago. So you have your starting quarterback, all 5 guys up front, your 2 Division I running backs. Devontae Phillips is a receiver that is going to be one of the best players in his class. And then you have a defense that has 2 defensive linemen back, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive backs, so great balance in the secondary. The question mark for me, and again, this is a team that legitimately could have been number 1, they brought in a new coach, Roland Smith. There's always some level of transition when that happens. Telly Lockett went to USF. This team on paper should not lose a game. They have a rigorous schedule, but they will be favored in every game they play, most likely. It's just a matter of, can they put it all together? Can the transition between coaches be seamless? And can they play up to their potential? Because as I wrote, I really think the only team that can stop Miami Central is Miami Central.
Well said. And now, we don't have a drum roll, but drum roll, please. Number 1, De La Salle out of California. No Bob Ladouceur, no problem. Why are the Spartans at the top of the stack?
Well, we talked about the coaching transition at Miami Central. If you could write a guide on how to transition coaches, you'd have to follow De La Salle's model, because they've been grooming Justin Allenbaugh for probably the better part of a decade to take over for Bob Ladouceur. And so Bob Ladouceur will stay on as an assistant running backs coach. You could tell actually in their bowl game last year, they were already I think the team knew that Coach Allenbaugh was going to take over, and kind of the way that they were looking to him in the second half of the game against Centennial. So this transition has been flawless. And you're still going to have Ladouceur there to help out, but I think he's really going to embrace his role. I don't think there's going to be, a coach looking over his shoulders or a coach trying to speak up out of turn. I think they handled the coaching transition flawlessly. But more importantly, they have a team that is really, really stacked on both sides of the line. Their offensive line is always well-conditioned and well-disciplined and just fires off the ball. But this year, they're going to have guys firing off the ball that are 270 pounds instead of 215 pounds, which is what De La Salle lines often are. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have a very big physical offensive line, a very talented defensive line, a returning quarterback, a 1,000-yard rusher, and young kids that are starting to make people think that the talent level at De La Salle is getting back to what it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think all of those ingredients, the coaching continuity, the talent on the line, the quarterback, the emerging young players, I think it's going to be a special year for De La Salle.
Yeah, they just that's a true reload, and if they're getting back to the early days, whoo, look out, everyone. Go to wrap up with Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps. Just went through the entire Early Contenders Top 25, but we always like to give you the opportunity to say, I had a couple of teams that almost made it, just made it, and if you can, because I know the Southern California fans out here are going to ask, no Mater Dei, no Mission Viejo. Come on, Steve, what's up?
Yeah, no, those teams were squarely in the mix. Mission Viejo especially, Mater Dei as well. I even kind of expect a bounce-back year for Servite. But this is a year where in previous years, there may have been one, if one, kind of elite Southern California team. I remember a few years ago, it was kind of like, who wants to step up and be kind of a nationally ranked team in Southern California, because there was a lot of parity. This year there is parity, but it's parity among elite teams. There are 3 or 4 very, very good teams that any other year I think would have a solid case to be the number 1 overall team in Southern California. That this year, there's just so much depth and so many teams that have really reloaded. So, definitely teams like Mission Viejo in other years would probably be up there. In other places, I think South Lake Carroll is a team that has a really, really strong argument to be ranked in the preseason top 25. A lot of people have been questioning where the Midwest teams are. Pennsylvania and Ohio. I think Ohio will have some very good teams. A lot of people are mentioning St. Edward. I think they'll be good. I'm not ready to kind of elevate them into the national discussion yet. Lakota West is another team, St. Xavier and Cincinnati. And then from Pennsylvania, I think St. Joseph's Prep has an opportunity to take that next step, and possibly LaSalle. But I didn't see any of those teams kind of standing out among their peers locally enough to elevate them into the national mix.
Great job. You only lost your you had to swallow there one time. You got 30 minutes in. That's awesome, man. Seriously, this guy does a great job, folks, and you got to read him all the time on MaxPreps.com. Steve Spiewak, thank you so much. And by the way, thank you for throwing the little Pennsylvania in there for me. I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but it's good to know who I have back in the old Keystone State. But thank you so much. Enjoy the season, and I know we'll catch up as we go down the road.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That's Steve Spiewak of MaxPreps. Taking a break, coming back with more. You're listening to High School Football America, sponsored by Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. This is the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
This portion of High School Football America brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. Don't forget our other sponsors that make the show possible each and every week, starting with Webleats.com, the Maxwell Football Club, and NCSA Athletic Recruiting. News from around the nation, we start in Virginia. Fairfax County school and sports officials have been really concerned about head trauma in football. As a matter of fact, the Centerville Youth Football League was one of the first of 3 in the nation to try out the new Heads Up Tackling program, which is promoted by USA Football, the nonprofit national governing board of youth football, and a partner with the NFL. The Heads Up program teaches safer tackling techniques, and it keeps the head away from contact. That's what they're hoping for in these new teaching skills, and they hope that the Heads Up program will go a long way toward reducing head injuries. Well, now after the youth program there took the step to adopt Heads Up, Fairfax County Public Schools, the first district in America to adopt the required Heads Up teaching techniques for all of its high school football programs this season. Earlier this week, Scott Hallenbach, the executive director of USA Football, quoted in USA Today saying, this is a show of leadership in Fairfax County. From the youth level right through its high schools, it's being noticed throughout the high school football community there, and other districts across the country are likely to follow the example set in Fairfax County in the public school district there. Time to talk about a little California football news, and a surprise just a couple of days ago. Granite Bay, which won the state football championship in Division I this past season, their longtime coach, their only coach at Granite Bay up in the north part of the state, Ernie Cooper, stunned his players when the spring practice season began on Wednesday by telling them he no longer has the fire in his belly, and he's stepping down immediately as the school's football coach. 51 years old, and after 17 seasons, quite a record. 155 victories, only 43 defeats, and 1 tie. The Grizzlies won 10 league and 5 Sac Joaquin section titles. Last year was a special one for Cooper. The Grizzlies started out 1-3, but they were able to bounce all the way back, make it to the CIF Division I Bowl Championship game, and there they beat Long Beach Poly by a score of 21-20 in Carson, California, and quite a year for Coach Cooper. And he says, it's time to step down, and it's been happening a lot lately as we get deeper and deeper. I think the closer we get to like spring practices, as more states have spring practices, I think coaches are really evaluating kind of the fire in the belly. Folks, it takes a lot to coach high school football. A lot of fans spend a lot of time complaining about coaches, whether it's head coaches or assistants, but these people are truly leaders in this country, and the pay, other than Texas, I would say, never ever matches the amount of time that they put in. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these inside looks at high school football with the coaches around the country. It started with Jason Strunk with the turnaround at Lubbock High. The second one was Brian Weichel, who we had another new blog come out from him today. He's at Cardinal Stritch High School in Ohio outside of Toledo. He's taking a program that has had very little success. He's rebuilding things there. And then coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to talk to another blogger. He hasn't written anything yet, but we wanted to introduce you to him because he's got a job in front of him, and he's also going to teach us a lot about South Dakota football. His name is Bill Godsil. He's the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School, and he is going to be our next guest when we come back. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
GTM Sportswear is proud to sponsor outstanding student athletes through the Athlete of the Month program with the National High School Coaches Association. For any sport or any season, GTM has your team covered from practice to performance with uniforms, warm-ups, practice wear, fan apparel, and more. Go online to gtmsportswear.com and find a sales representative in your area for a one-on-one consultation. With dependable apparel at the right price, outfitting your team has never been easier with GTM Sportswear.
Next stop on High School Football America, brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, reminding you to share what you love with who you love. South Dakota, we've only been there one time before on the show in the 2 years of doing the show, and we're going to welcome in not only a coach there, but he's now part of the High School Football America family, as he's going to blog for us. And as we said over the last couple of weeks with Strunky down there in West Texas and Brian Weichel in the small school in Ohio, we're trying to give as much diversity as we can to these coaches and give the readers out there in America, something that they're not going to get anywhere else. And I got to be honest with you, South Dakota's got me excited. I know about the Black Hills, but I don't know about football there. And we have the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School. Maybe back in the day you may have heard of them. They had almost the longest losing streak in the country. They ended up with 79 straight, which did not break that infamous record, but they have a new coach there who's been a head coach in Arizona and New Mexico. He's also been an assistant coach and coordinators in Colorado, and that's where he's moving from to go up to South Dakota. And he's on the line right now. His name is Bill Godsil, and he is here to talk about Sturgis Brown and why he's going there and what he's going to be doing for us. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. It sounds like you're a little nomad there, and we've got a lot of coaches that do that. Tell us a little bit about your love for high school football and what's kind of dragged you around the Southwest and now up to South Dakota.
Well, I've always loved traveling and seeing new places. Growing up, my parents moved around quite a bit. I went to a couple different high schools, and I've just always been looking for a new challenge and new adventures. To my family's chagrin sometimes, but the opportunity to work and build programs is something that's special. I mean, I've been blessed over the last 13 years to be able to work with some great kids, some great coaches, build some great memories, and develop friendships that will last a lifetime. And having the opportunity to work with kids is a great reward, and one of the main reasons I got into teaching and coaching. I had some great coaches coming up when I was in high school, and I had some great coaches in college down in Abilene, and they just kind of sparked the interest in working with kids and tackling the job of being a head coach and developing a program and developing your own sense of identity.
I think one of the things that you're going to be able to share with our readers this year and listeners tonight, obviously, is a diversification. Everybody in America nowadays knows about who the number one recruit is as a quarterback, or somebody so-and-so's the number one team in the country, and they always tend to be the same 40 programs and all that. And I think what gets lost in the shuffle is it's still high school football, and because you've been in different states like a Colorado, like an Arizona, like a New Mexico, and now a South Dakota, what can you kind of draw as a common thread through those states that makes high school football the beautiful game that it is?
Well, they're still kids. I mean, that's the big thing. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make you get gray hair. They're going to make you want to pull your hair out. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've had the opportunity to go and be at camps at Boise State, and you see some of the best athletes come in there. Our kids from Grand Junction, we went up there and we got after it. And it's great to see kids that are just, they may not play another down of football after they graduate high school, but getting after it and competing. That's the exciting thing, because football's a great sport. I mean, if you've got the determination and you got the size and the speed, you can do something great with it. And some kids just do it just because it's a great outlet. I mean, it's something that teaches you life lessons, and that's what I love seeing the kids when I see them, mature into adults and become, fathers and husbands, and seeing how they've progressed, and that I've had a hand in that, and that's what's the exciting part about coaching football as in high school.
Talking with Bill Godsil tonight on High School Football America. He's going to be blogging for us. He's the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School in South Dakota, and let's talk a little bit about South Dakota football and what you know about it so far. Before we began this, we heard you're still packing and getting ready to go up there and move the family, but what's a thumbnail sketch of South Dakota football?
Well, South Dakota football, it is good football. I mean, I as soon as I got the job, as soon as I went up and interviewed, I started researching and watching film on different teams around the state. And there's some good athletes up in South Dakota, and there's going to be good football up there. And I'm excited to get the opportunity to take this program that was 1-8 last year and try to turn them around and get them going, because I've got some decent athletes on my team. And there's a lot of, like small school football around the most of the nation. You get your wing T teams, you get your double wing teams, your power option teams. Then again, you'll see teams that spread it out completely, go empty. So it's a good diversity up there. There's a whole bunch of small colleges up in South Dakota. You got Black Hills State. You have South Dakota School of Mines, which is within 30 miles each way of Sturgis, and then you've got South Dakota State and University of South Dakota, and then just a couple hours down the road you got Shadron. So there's a lot of good small school ball down there that college-wise to pull from. So the coaches are well coached up there. They know the game of football, and it's a good state for football.
And what I think we had him on the show. That was the last time we were in South Dakota. Washington High School holds the record in America for the most state championships. So there's some tradition there on the high school level too. We're talking with Bill Godsil tonight, the new head coach at Brown Sturgis High School, or Sturgis Brown High School. Excuse me, got a little dyslexia going there, I guess, Coach. But I mentioned at the top, there was a losing streak there that kind of put you, unfortunately, on the map before you were there and all that. What sort of hurdles do you have to overcome? Like you said, last year a losing record, but what are some of the things that you have to overcome, and then what are some of the positive things you see so far this year?
Well, anytime you go and take over a program, most coaches aren't lucky enough to take over a loaded program like in De La Salle. But you always have your challenges, and the big challenge anytime you go in a program is building unity, and you've got to build it in the weight room and get around the kids as much as possible. So that's the first thing I've been stressing since I got there. The weight room is critical. It's important to be there. Today was the first day of lifting. I'm just kicking myself for not being there, and so I've got to talk to my assistant coaches and see how the turnout was. If not, then I got to get on the horn and get them out there. And then the next thing you got to do when you're taking over a new program that's been down is you got to teach them how to compete first. When you lose, it's easy to quit competing when the chips are against you. And so you teach them to compete, and so everything we do will be a competition this summer to try to push themselves, to push each other, and then we can start talking about winning and how to win, how to fight through that adversity and develop into a winning program. That I talked briefly to a couple of the seniors and said that you guys are building the foundation for years to come, because without good senior leadership and getting this first class on board, it's going to be tough. I mean, that's one of the things that really excited me about Sturgis is it's a one-horse town. I'm going to be involved from the Pop Warner Leagues all the way up through high school, and going to be implementing the programs all the way up and getting the kids involved in the youth league so that when they come to the games on Friday night, they develop that their favorite player is Tanner Weaver, number 5, our quarterback, and they want to emulate him, as they come up and those types of things. So that's some of the exciting things that we have there in Sturgis. I've got some decent athletes. I've got my quarterback, Tanner Weaver, I think 6'3". I've got a pretty decent arm, pretty mobile. I got a 6'6" tight end, and I got a good little running back that's shifty and powerful. So Stetson Lippert. So it's going to be, there's some tools there. I just got to mold everything together, and that's the exciting part about it is taking all these individual pieces and bringing them together into one unit and believing in what we're doing and fighting to the end of every game that we play.
I mentioned that you're going to be blogging for us, just like Strunky is down in Texas and Brian Weichel in Ohio, and we're going to have about a dozen of you guys this year. So we're happy to have you on board. What got you fired up and wanting to do this?
Well, I read through Strunk's. I follow him on Twitter, and we talked back and forth, and I've read his blogs, and I thought it was a cool idea. I mean, you very rarely hear about anything north of Colorado, Nebraska, for any type of football, and there's good football up there. I mean, they don't get the pro athletes, they don't get the the big D1 guys, but kids are up there. They want to play football. They want to get an opportunity to go play at the next level if they can, and develop into great human beings. And that's the exciting part about it, sharing the insight, because if you're just average Joe in the at the barber shop and you just go to the games on Friday nights, you don't get to see the development that we get to see with the kids and see them grow, physically, mentally, and develop into the young adults that they're going to be.
Talking with Bill Godsil tonight, the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School. You reached out to me, and I know one of the hardest things, especially from a distance like you're dealing with right now, is putting together your staff. How have you put together this staff? Is it some returners from the program last year and finding, and do you have some holes there? Because we've got lots of listeners out there maybe looking for a job. So how'd you put the staff together?
Well, I was lucky to inherit two guys that are in building, and that's huge to have people in building when you're coaching high school football. So they're staying on the staff and bringing back most of the staff from last year. But I do need to find an O-line, D-line coach. We have got a couple openings in science. We have an opening in physical science and ag for that position. And then I'm trying to bring in a coach that had been at DC at King College. He lives in the area, so I'm working on bringing him in to see if he wants to coach as well. So we'll find that out here hopefully this weekend. But yeah, it's difficult, especially when you don't have teaching jobs and to bring people in. Most football coaches are social studies or PE, and those are hard jobs to find for people.
Talking with Bill Godsil tonight. If you want to get in touch with Coach, if you're interested in going to South Dakota, if you fit the bill there, offensive, defensive line coach, you can reach out to him on Twitter at Coach Godsil. And let's just wrap up with kind of a little bit of a wish list here, some goals that you're putting together for this team, and knowing that you're chomping at the bit. Weightlifting, as you said, is already underway today. What are some of the things that you're going to want to see this year that'll make you smile at the end of the season?
Well, keeping the numbers up, that's the first one. We had, when I went up to meet the kids at the beginning of May, we had over 65 kids at the high school show up, 10 through 12, and then incoming classes at almost 60 as well. So we're looking at almost 120 kids, which is phenomenal in a school of 700 kids. So that's one big goal I have, is to keep those numbers up when we get into the season. And then the next thing is to be competitive. We open up with the state runner-up in our classification. First home game, and so we'll be tested early. And to be able to compete in that and be in a position to win the game at the end, and is another goal. And then the final goal I have is to win the Black Hills Conference. Sturgis is moving from playing all the Sioux Falls schools back to the Black Hills region and playing schools that are more comparative in size. So that's my goal, and to get in the playoffs. I mean, to give these kids a chance, just a taste of getting in the playoffs and seeing what it's all about.
Real quick question. This is more of a Travel Channel question, I guess. But my girlfriend and executive producer Trish Hoffman has been to the Black Hills. I haven't. She said it's one of the most beautiful areas in the world. How would you describe it?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I graduated from Dickinson State in Dickinson, North Dakota. And my wife and I used to go down to the Black Hills all the time. And I mean, I live in a wonderful place here in Colorado. I look out and I see the Colorado National Monument. I see the mountains around me. I got the Colorado River. I love Colorado. It's beautiful, but there's something special about the Black Hills. And you just, as you come in out of Wyoming, coming from the west, you start seeing the hills develop as you get into Spearfish, and then all of a sudden you hit Sturgis, and it's just lush green and dark hills with from the pines, and it is just beautiful. I mean, my backyard, I'm excited. I can't wait to get up there. I've got my backyard goes right up into the Black Hills, and
wow.
I'm just excited. I mean, that's the exciting part too. I mean, I just love that area. It's a wonderful place. People there are great. I mean, I've had nothing but a great reaction from everybody I've talked to, and people calling me up and, out of the blue, emailing me, hey, if you need this, you need that. It's been a great opportunity and been a great experience so far.
Well, we want more than writing now. We want to see some pictures there of the surrounding areas. Make you kind of like Anthony Bourdain of South Dakota, something like that. I don't know. But, Coach, we look forward to having you, write for us this year, and look forward to following your progress. I have no doubt it's going to be a good year. Can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. So thank you for taking the time, and look forward to catching up down the road as the season moves along.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity.
Very welcome. That's Bill Godsil. You can follow him at Coach Godsil, Godsil, on Twitter. Time to talk recruiting. And we're here to talk about NCSA athletic recruiting. Parents, you know how hard it is to find and get a scholarship for your son or daughter to play in college, especially one that fits his or her athletic and academic abilities and needs. Tonight, I'm here to tell you about NCSA Athletic Recruiting, America's premier company that's here to help you. NCSA Athletic Recruiting helps parents and their student athletes connect with the right schools. And when it comes to college football, no company is better than NCSA Athletic Recruiting. NCSA Athletic Recruiting works with all 800 college football programs, and they know which colleges are looking for what when it comes to those measurables, the grades and the test scores. Bottom line, NCSA Athletic Recruiting knows which college coaches are looking for what. If your child is qualified, NCSA can match him or her with all the schools that need players. To learn more, go to the homepage of High School Football America at highschoolfootballamerica.com. Click on the NCSA Athletic Recruiting banner, which is on the right side, and we have a special deal with them. You get to fill out a free profile for your child. So they are the leaders. These are the people that can help you out. They've helped out over tens of thousands. They were just named one of the fastest growing companies in Chicago. So when you're thinking about how to help your kids find that scholarship, think NCSA Athletic Recruiting, a proud sponsor of High School Football America. Also want to thank all of our sponsors on the show tonight. Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. They appreciate you for tuning in each and every Thursday so we can share these great high school football stories with you. And they want to remind you that, like football, Frosted Flakes is another passion that you can share with your kids. Dads, whenever you're sharing that passion, it doesn't just have to be about football, baseball, basketball, or just life in general, academics and all that. Make sure you sit down and share that passion with your kids over a bowl of Frosted Flakes. Also want to remind you to check out webleets.com and the Maxwell Football Club at maxwellfootballclub.org. Proud sponsors of High School Football America. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's show. Great show. Really appreciate both of our guests, Steve Spiewak from MaxPreps, giving us that early look inside the mythical national championship chase. De La Salle out of California. They are at the top of the list. The bullseye's on the chest of the Spartans, but it's been there before, and we believe that they truly are one of the top contenders this year, but also like some of the other teams that are in the mix there. So if you want to check it out, go to maxpreps.com to see exactly who Steve has ranked from top to bottom in his Early Contenders Top 25. Also want to thank Bill Godsil, the new head coach at Sturgis Brown High School in South Dakota. He's going to start blogging for us in a couple of weeks, but the interview is a very good look inside football in South Dakota. Also want to remind you to join the High School Football America family, the social media family. Just go to the icons at the top of the web page for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest. They're all there for you. And should have said after I mentioned Coach Godsil coming on the show, make sure you check out the 2 blogs that are going fast and furious now. We're going to have about a dozen by the time the season comes around. But anyway, the ones that are up there right now, we've got Brian Weichel from Cardinal Stritch High School outside of Toledo in Ohio, writing his that's called Rebuilding a Tradition. And then we've got, or Building a Tradition, excuse me. And then we have Strunky, Jason Strunk from Lubbock High School, writing the turnaround. Check those out. All you have to do is go to highschoolfootballamerica.com or highschoolfootball.com. Click on the news tab there. It'll drop down, and you'll be able to see all of the writings of both of those coaches. And again, we're going to have a lot more coming up here over the next couple of months. I want to thank Corey King back in Ohio for keeping the show running so smoothly as our producer. For now, this is Jeff Fisher saying good night and good sports from Laguna Beach in Southern California. You've been listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.